Welcome everyone to Crypto Miners. My name is Mary and I will be your host. Also a reminder that anything we talk about in here is for educational purpose only and should not be taken as a financial advice. And you all know that you must do all your own research as always. So, and with that, I am delighted to say that today we are going to learn more about one of the top projects. I'm very happy to say that we have Algorand here for a presentation. And welcome to Mr. John Wood, CTO of Algorand Foundation. How are you, sir?
Hey, thank you very much. Good. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
We are very excited to have you. I've heard so much good about Algorand, but I'm not very familiar with it yet, but I look forward to be. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you will be by the time we finish talking.
I hope so. So yes, I have seen that there is two Algorand. There is Algorand and Algorand Foundation, right?
Yeah, so the foundations are a general social media account, and they're here just to listen in. And then, yeah, I'm speaking from my personal account.
Okay, very good. So why don't we start, John, by a little introduction of yourself? When did you start in crypto, and also when did you start with Algorand, and maybe why?
Yeah, sure. So I guess, yeah, I'm John Woods. I'm the CTO of the Algorand Foundation. And so my job is really to promote the use of Algorand, to foster the ecosystem, to make it a compelling place to build, to work on the developer tools, to work on education around Algorand, and to support people who are out there who are interested in building on decentralized platforms like Algorand. Um, in terms of where I started with crypto, I guess it would have been about 2012 when I was using Bitcoin for the first time. A pal of mine at the time who was we went to the same university. He kind of said, "Hey, check this out," and we were playing with it. At that time, like the blockchain was quite small. You could sync it on a MacBook, um, and I started playing around with it. Unfortunately, didn't keep all of my Bitcoin. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to work at this point. But it was interesting to play with.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, tell me about it. I like gambling like 5 Bitcoins on Satoshi Dice. Yeah, I wish I hadn't done that. But
Yeah.
I guess more formally, I would say that, cryptocurrencies, whether it's, Algorand, Bitcoin, Monero, Cardano, whatever, they're really, from an engineering perspective, they're the intersection of applied cryptography, mathematics, and distributed systems engineering. And so I guess more formally, when I started working in applied cryptography, so this is building systems with cryptographic primitives, that would have been in 2016, 2017 or so, when I joined Consensus. And Consensus is a studio launched by Joseph Lubin, one of the co-founders of Ethereum, and I worked there as an architect building things on Ethereum, and that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first introduction to building real systems on something that was completely decentralized, like Ethereum. And then from there, I've worked professionally in the crypto industry in Cardano, where I was the chief architect. In IOHK, where I was the chief architect on Cardano, and indeed most recently, I guess, with Algorand Foundation as the CTO. I think you might be muted, Mary, if you're speaking. If not, I can take over as host. Hello, everybody. Is it me or is it everyone else that has problems? I don't know. Can you guys hear me? If you can hear me, maybe clap your hands. You can. Cool.
Sorry,
Okay.
guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, my internet was a little bit weird there. Sorry. So yeah, uh, so tell us also about the team of Algorand. It's a huge project. Has grown to become a huge project.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Can you
There's
hear me?
two. Yeah, I can. Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. No. Um, I think let me just try and
Hello.
leave and then join back.
Sounds good, John. Thank you.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Hey, can you hear me okay now, Mary?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, thank God.
Okay, that's all right. I guess
Uh,
I guess we have our answer now with regard to what happens at Twitter when you sack off 80% of the employees. Apparently, apparently the Twitter spaces are worse than ever. I, if Elon's
I
listening,
doubt I
Elon,
can blame
bring them back.
Elon Musk for this. I think it was my internet.
No,
But now I'm back.
it didn't work for me either, and also I can tell you that the guys at the foundation who are listening also have problems. So I think it's
Okay.
everyone.
Yeah,
So
but you and me, we can hear each other now, and I think it's still recording, so let's
yeah,
continue.
sounds good. Cool. Okay, so yeah, so I was mentioning how I'd worked with the Algorand Foundation and also with Cardano and also with
Hmm.
Consensus as professional experience working in the crypto industry. And then you were asking about the kind of the teams that are at Algorand. So
Yeah.
the teams are really broken down in terms of the people who work professionally on it, who are paid to work on it. It's the Algorand Foundation and the Algorand Inc. And so the Algorand Inc. Is the protocol engineering team. They are the folks who are designing our new cryptographic protocols like state proofs. They are the people who are designing the scaling on the protocol. So they're the guys who are working on the number of transactions per second. They're working on the consensus algorithms. They're working on the performance of the software, like the Algorand node and the relays. And then at the foundation, which is the other side of the team, it's focused on adoption and the ecosystem. Um, and so looking at the various verticals, whether it's gaming or Web3 or NFTs or DAOs or dev tooling or education and those type of things, the folks at the foundation are really about investing in the ecosystem and building out adoption of Algorand as a layer one.
So you guys are making sure that people are using what the Algorand Inc. is producing,
Precisely that,
basically.
and also feeding back. I guess all good products start with great requirements, and I think it's our job as well to speak with the guys at the foundation and explain to them what parts of the protocol need to be improved. Right, like so
Hmm.
when I joined the foundation first, I had a lot of people tell me that the developer experience wasn't great, and so the foundation are currently working on that. We're building a new product called ALGO and ALGO is our next generation developer tool. Right, this is going to be a complete developer suite, which comes with a load of great stuff. Things like VS Code support, syntax highlighting, line by line debugging, a command line tool to help people build projects, test projects, and deploy projects easily and great abstractions for the language so that people can spend more time working on their business logic and less time working on boilerplate stuff. Or whether it's, feedback that I would get and say, hey, well, we need to work on decentralizing the relays, or we need to work on how quick state proofs are produced. These are the types of things that we collaborate on with the Inc. to make sure that the protocol and the platform is as performant and as good to use as possible.
Well, lots of what you said now sounds a little bit like Greek to me. Like I'm not a dev, so but I'm sure some people in here could follow you 100%, and people who are going to listen afterwards too. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So can we like take a deep breath and you can tell me like an elevator pitch a little bit, or you can make it a little bit longer. What is Algorand, and what are you aiming to do in the space? I mean, what I've read so far is that you tried to be like faster and better than Ethereum. That's why many of these blockchains started. But what are you now? How would you describe Algorand at this point?
Sure. I would describe Algorand as a Generation 3 proof of stake blockchain. It is a layer 1 protocol that aims to be a platform or an operating system for decentralized applications and for people who wish to build decentralized, self-sovereign, permissionless, and censorship-resistant applications. And to provide that platform that supports those types of apps whilst being egalitarian, available to all developers of all skill sets, and doing so with functional, with kind of an experience, I should say, that is fast, scalable, cheap to use, and decentralized. So Algorand is trying to be a best of breed, latest generation, layer 1 blockchain. It's trying to provide a platform that anyone can use, and it's trying to do so whilst pushing the boundaries on distributed systems engineering and applied cryptography. And I think we're getting there. And the reasons I think we're pushing along the journey of achieving that goal is because Algorand has, unlike most blockchains, it has never experienced any downtime in the mainnet. So it's got 100% uptime, which means it's a very robust network. You can rely on it being there. If you go to use it at 2 a.m., it's there. If you go to use it on a Sunday morning, it's working. It's there. And it's never had any downtime. Number two, Algorand is fit for purpose when it comes to how many transactions it can process. And so when you're someone who's out there building an application or a decentralized app or a DApp or a smart contract, whatever you want to call it, you want to make sure that the operating system or the blockchain that you deploy that app on or that DApp on is one which is performant enough that the user experience is good. And Algorand has about 6,000 or just over 6,000 transactions a second at the moment, and it's going to be pushed up to around 10 over the next few months. And so this gives an experience where transactions feel instant. It's like sending a text message. And so when you're interacting with an application on Algorand, you'll experience near real-time feedback. And this gives a great user experience to people who are used to things like Ethereum, where, for example, you don't get that near instant feedback, where you have to wait for blocks to be confirmed. And on top of that, Algorand is cheap to use. And that means for less than a fraction of a penny, you can interact with contracts, you can roll your own currency, you can deploy your NFTs. And so this means that it's available to everyone. It's an egalitarian platform. And the last thing I'd say is that Algorand has other subtleties to it that make for a great user experience, such as the fact that it has instant block finality. And so what do I mean there? I mean, on most blockchains, you submit a transaction, it gets processed into a block, but then you've got to wait for confirmations. And this is common with Bitcoin and others, where you have to wait for 3 or 4 blocks before you can consider the transaction done. On Algorand, we have a block every 3.5 seconds. And once your transaction's in a block, for a bunch of technical reasons that I'm happy to explore if you'd like, you can consider it completely finalized and done. So you don't have to wait for confirmations. And this means you don't get rollbacks. Your deals are not unwound. When you make a trade with an NFT, it gets done straight away. And so all of these characteristics, the speed, decentralization, the security, the scalability, this means that Algorand is really best in class when it comes to an offering for a layer 1 blockchain.
That sounds amazing. So when you say best in class, is there no others like competitors that are close to you then, you think?
Well,
you're biased, obviously.
Yeah, I'm biased. I'm incredibly biased. I'm the CTO of the foundation. Well, I mean, I don't like to pick on other platforms because I don't think it's very cool. But like, look, there are plenty of platforms out there that do a good job. I mean, as I look through the kind of the top 30 chains or so, I think some are interesting and some are doing real strong engineering. I mean, Cardano is interesting. It's had little to no downtime. It's engineering is very strong, but it doesn't have the same number of transactions per second as Algorand has. I think products like Ethereum are very good, and Polygon, it's obviously pretty good as well. But again, they just don't have the finality that Algorand has. Solana is extremely fast, but of course it doesn't have it's not as robust, and it's publicly suffered a number of events where it's been down. And so, I think though largely there's some very intelligent people across all these projects, and so it's not that we're the best of the best of the best. It's just that I think we do a lot of things very, very well, and I think the product overall, I call it a product, but really the blockchain overall is a really compelling place to build applications.
So you took the best of everyone else and made it.
Yeah, I guess. I guess we try. I mean, it's easier when you come a little bit later in the game. So platforms like Algorand,
obviously,
and like Cardano, they built on some of the mistakes that were made with things like Ethereum. Ethereum's done a great job, as an example, in progressing to proof of stake. It's done a great job in evolving its technology over time. But of course, it takes time to build on older architectures. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of projects that are in the top 30 that I think are not good, that I haven't named today. But I think folks will know what they are. When you look at a project, I should speak for myself. When I'm looking at a project and I'm trying to assess its value, the things I focus on are, what's the team like? What's the quality of the engineering and the amount of effort that's been put into the project? What's the applied cryptography like? What's the strength of the team that are working on that? And what's the overall vision of the project? And if those things are good, then I think the project is worthwhile.
Yeah, I think the team is very important to know that the team is committed also to the future, not just to, like, well, you can't call projects like this pump and dump, but there are lots of those kind of projects as well.
Oh, absolutely, I totally agree. There certainly are.
And Algorand seems to me more foundational, more like we just started here, and I think you have a lot of plans ahead. And looking back at your journey so far, I mean Algorand's journey, I guess you have learned a lot, and you said you didn't have much downtime, and so what kind of things have you improved during this time, though?
Mm-hmm.
Or
yeah, sure. So I mean, I'm at the foundation about 6 months, so I guess I'm a relative newbie, because a lot of the folks that are working with me have been here for a longer time. But in terms of the things that I've seen since I've joined, and of course I haven't been directly responsible for all of these things, we've rolled out our post-quantum security for the first step in terms of being secure against a quantum computer attacking the chain. And so now the entire posterity of the chain, or the chain from genesis to the current point, is completely secured with a post-quantum signature scheme called Falcon. And we can talk about that if you'd like. Additionally,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It uses some math from the moon, so it's interesting. And additionally, we have rolled out an increase in transactions per second. So when I joined the foundation 6 months ago, we were at about 2,000. We're now at about 6,000 transactions a second. The block time, so the finality has come down. So how long you have to wait for a transaction to be processed, whether that's sending money to your sister or whether that's interacting with a smart contract on the chain, it doesn't matter. The block time has dropped from about 4.2 seconds down to about 3.6 or 3.7 seconds. So that's how long you have to wait for a transaction.
And how many transactions? I mean, blockchains always talks of we can do this and this much, but how much do you really do? I mean, how much is normal? How many per second is done?
Yeah, so in terms of per second, it ebbs and flows. It's between 12 and 22, I think, over the last few weeks. So about let's say 15 to 20 transactions per second will be what we're kind of seeing. And so yeah, I mean, at the absolute peak, we've seen up to 6,000 transactions in a single second. But I think that was during load testing to make sure that this stuff works. So yes, in general, Algorand is very much ahead. The pipe is bigger than the flow of water at the moment. But that's where you want to be, right? So when you're building systems, that's exactly where you want to be. You want to be ahead of demand, not behind it. So
Yeah, of course.
we're in a good position, but at the same time, this is my job. My job is to make sure that we do see adoption, and we see growth in those transactions per second, and yeah, we see overall usage of the chain increase.
Yeah, and speaking of mass adoption, I mean, I read somewhere, I think that you're Swift proven, or I don't know the expression there, but you could be working with that.
Oh,
can you elaborate
yeah,
on that? Can you explain that
the Swift programming language, is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. So, I don't know whether people in the chat listening in the AMA will know this about me, but I'm a bit of an Apple nerd. I quite enjoy the way they build products. I like the way they have attention to detail around the user experience. And so, as well, and co-answering your previous question of things we've achieved since I've joined, we've started work on ALGO, which is, as I mentioned earlier, our new developer tool to make things really easy when you want to build things on the chain. And so, I was looking at ways that we could make it even easier for developers to build, because ultimately it's like this. It's the circle of life on blockchain is developers come, they build the chain, other developers come, they build the apps, then the users come, and the chain grows. And so if you don't have this circle of developers building and users using, then you don't get adoption. So for me, developers are very important to look after. They are first-class people within our ecosystem. So when I was looking at Swift, I really like Swift personally. I did a lot of development in Swift previously, both as a hobby and a little bit professionally. And so I think programming languages like Swift, which Apple has built with Chris Lattner, who's a linguistics expert, really try to push forward the state of the art in languages, but they do so in a way that they try to lower the barrier to entry. And so Swift has been written so that if you're a 7-year-old child and you have an interest in learning the basics of how you can write a simple program to print your name, you can do that in Swift, and you can do it in a single line of code where you just say print, and then you put in brackets the text you want to print. And at the same time, Swift can be used as a systems programming language to build operating systems or low-level device drivers. So Swift really scales from beginner all the way to advanced users. And I want Algorand's developer tools to be the exact same thing. I want this thing to be something that a 15-year-old can come along and play with, or I want it similarly to be something that a 40-year-old seasoned professional developer enjoys using. And when I mentioned Swift in terms of Algorand, what I meant there was we could look at in the future in moving forward with ALGO and evolving it so that languages like Swift are available to use. So currently the language we use is a Python-like language called Python. And Python gives Python syntax as an interface to write smart contracts. But I would like it to be the case that we can open up the language choice and use languages like Swift or JavaScript or Rust, languages that are already popular with the community, so that it's even easier to build your smart contracts in a language that you enjoy using.
My God, I think I could learn so much from you.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Yeah. And I was also thinking that I read somewhere that you could make like instant payments, and not only to one person at a time, but to many at a time. And that was like called atomic transfers or something.
Yes, atomic transfers or atomic transactions. These are pretty cool. So, I think this question is even broader, which is Algorand has some low-level features, or it has some, sorry, I should say protocol features that are unique to it that allow you to do things that are really cool. And so it's not that these things are not possible on Ethereum or Cardano or other places. They are. They could go and they could implement these things. But Algorand has them right now. And so the types of things that we can do, atomic transactions are one of them. That's a kind of a feature with Algorand where you can say, hey, I have a certain number of transactions, 3, 5, 10, 12, whatever it is. And I want these all to go through, or I want none of them to go through. And so this is a native feature within Algorand that you can get a box, a metaphorical box, and in that box you can put in the 5, 10, 12, whatever transactions, and you can give those transactions to the protocol and say, hey, process these, but if any one of them fails, then they all have to fail. And so and that's what an atomic transaction is. And so these types of features, they really help developers achieve things in a quicker way. Of course, you could do this in Ethereum using smart contracts as an abstraction, but ultimately it's a native feature with Algorand.
Very interesting. So this can be used also in the future for maybe, I don't know, if you want to pay out salary to people, or
yeah, or I guess
where can you use
it?
it?
I guess maybe in escrow or in certain types of financial transactions. Or I guess, any time that you want to make sure that you don't pay someone without paying the other entities in the relationship as well. So maybe for divorce settlements. I don't know.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where is oh no, there's so many questions in my head right now, but you said there were lots of benefits or features of the Algorand, and this atomic transfer was one. Did you want to tell us about some others?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, of course, like, I said, of course I'm biased. So, but there's
We know that.
but there's lots of things that I think are great. So, and when I moved from Cardano over to Algorand, of course I had to make a big decision. That I'm moving from one big chain to another and then another big chain. And so, I assessed all this stuff before I moved over, and to make sure that I was jumping into something that was going to be a big success. And that's why I still feel the same way. So, as an example, on Algorand, you have smart contracts very much like Ethereum, but on Ethereum, if you want to roll out like an NFT, so a token that represents a piece of art or a piece of music, or you want to roll out your own native token, so your own currency or coin on the Ethereum platform, you have to do this using a smart contract. You've got to write a contract, compile it into EVM bytecode, which is the ones and zeros for the Ethereum computer, and then you upload that app to the you upload that contract to the chain, and then your coin is issued or your NFT is issued. And so Algorand has this concept of smart contracts too. We have a different virtual machine or computer inside Algorand. We call it the AVM, or the Algorand virtual machine. But I think quite importantly, Algorand also has the notion of a standardized asset. We call it an ASA, or Algorand Standard Asset. And so this allows you to issue NFTs or issue your own token or coin, for example, Mary coin, and you can do this without writing it.
Yay.
Yeah, absolutely. Could be big, and you could do this without writing any smart contract code. And so this is, again, it's a subtlety, right? It's not something that's essential. You could go and you could write smart contract code to do this, but on Algorand, you can, just by defining your asset, and you fill out a couple of fields and you say it's got this many coins, it's got this structure, you can create assets or native coins or tokens on Algorand without writing a line of actual code. And so this is, I think, another nice feature.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Let's do the Mary coin very soon.
Yeah, hyper rare Mary coin, only 10 coins, 500,000 each.
Oh, 10 coins, yeah. That's got to be some demand. Yeah.
Absolutely, rarity.
So you told us about Algorand Standard Assets, ASA.
Yeah.
ASA.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. And that's why you can do NFTs.
Yeah, exactly. So an NFT is effectively an Algorand standard asset with generally speaking, an issuance of one. So it's only got one token. And where in the metadata, or in the characteristic data for that token, it will describe the characteristics of the NFT. So it will say, it'll have a link to the underlying asset, whether that's music or a picture or whatever, and it will have the meta characteristics of the NFT.
Very interesting. So I also read somewhere that Algorand is compliant with ISO 20022, or how do you say that? I don't know. The standards, the ISO standards.
Yeah. So I've seen this as well, and so I think Stacy, who's the CEO of the foundation, kind of answered this best when she was on an interview recently. Well, I guess it wasn't that recent, a few months back, and these standards, they are just basically message interchange standards. This is where, like, a bunch of people, and I used to be on an ISO committee, so I've been part of a committee that's standardized a message format prior to this. And so they just sit around in a room and they have these They call them plenaries, and they sit around and they talk about what the structure of messages will look like. And they do this so that everyone can agree, so that everyone understands how things work. And so this is very similar for many things in our lives, from how the internet works to how the plug sockets work in different countries, etc. And so, it's not that Algorand is explicitly adherent in its at a protocol level to that ISO standard that you mentioned, but rather Algorand, as well as other cryptocurrencies, by the way, can adhere to it if they wish. And so there's nothing stopping someone writing a contract that can adhere to that standard. But I want to be clear with people: it doesn't make sense for a layer 1 to adhere to an ISO standard per se.
No, I was just gonna ask, I mean, what is really the point? Because it's like, it sounds very good to see that everywhere, but I'm not really sure what it really could mean for well, for this for a crypto project.
Totally.
But yeah.
I mean, and that's it. I think, I've seen infographics around Twitter where people are saying, well, Algorand is compatible with this ISO standard or that ISO standard. And I don't think that there's much value in that. I think what's important is that we build Algorand and other cryptocurrency platforms in a way that they are extensible and modular, and that they allow adherence to whatever appropriate standard might be the case. And so Algorand, of course, is focused on DeFi and decentralized finance and enabling interoperability between other chains. And so in that vein, we have architected Algorand, its assets, its native assets, its smart contracts, its logic signatures, and all of the other technical parts of the SDKs to be as extensible as possible, so that if you do want to be compatible with Swift, you can create a Swift message. If you do want to be compatible with an ISO standard, you can do that as well.
You provide, and other people can use it if they need to, and if they want to.
Exactly.
And that's really good.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And so quite literally, if you wanted to create a Swift message for a standard bank on Algorand, you could do that. But I don't think it makes much sense to say that Algorand is Swift compatible. Instead, you'd write a smart contract, and it would describe data, and then the bank would read the contract and then act on that contract. So yeah, that's how it works.
So is not Algorand aiming to replace Swift payments then instead of?
I don't really think so. I don't really think that that's the goal. I think it's much more. It's not about kind of going in and trying to kill traditional finance.
No.
I mean, it's so I think really it's about providing an open. When I say open, I mean like the internet, so anyone can use it. An open, decentralized, and when I say that, I mean where no one person controls it, where there's no one off switch, right? Because with things like Swift and otherwise, there's central controls where people can turn them on and off. An open, decentralized, and permissionless platform where people can build applications for the future of the internet. I think that's much more what it's about. It's about inclusivity. It's about egalitarian access to information and to currency and to assets. And really, it's about empowering and enabling people a lot more than it's about trying to kill traditional industries. Certainly, from my point of view,
you can live aside each other.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah, and also the euro is great. I mean, it works pretty well. It's reliable. So I don't think we need to kill it.
No, not yet anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So I also saw that Algorand you call yourself the green blockchain.
Sure.
Because you have like this carbon. You even buy carbon prints or what it's called and
Credits.
Put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, credits.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Algorand is very energy efficient, and so this is something I personally care a lot about. I care a lot about energy efficiency. I didn't always care about it, right? I used to have long showers when I was a kid. My parents would be like shouting at me. I used to boil, kettles of water and fill them all the way up to the top and waste kilowatts of electricity. I used to leave the lights on. But I've moved away from that lifestyle as I've grown up, and I'm now paying for the electricity bills. Especially in Europe, where like electricity is now more rare than gold. So
yeah, kind of.
So it's very important in life just to try to be energy efficient, and so even in my own home, I've installed energy monitors and solar panels, and I'm able to see how much power I use. And so basic things like only boiling as much water as you need, or using bulbs that are all LED based, so that you're not using incandescent bulbs at 100 watts. And so now I have this fundamental understanding for what's an amp? What's a volt? What's a watt? How much power is a kilowatt? How does this stuff work? And so when you compare Algorand to other cryptocurrencies, you'll see that in terms of its power efficiency, it's really, really good. And so it's not the only one that's green. I think most proof of stake blockchains are pretty green on the whole. Obviously, proof of work blockchains, by definition of the work takes energy. Energy uses power. And so therefore, in general, proof of work blockchains tend to be not so power efficient. Some are worse than others. But in terms of Algorand, it's probably best in class when it comes to its efficiency. And so how do I calculate this number? And so the answer is I look at all of the relay nodes that are out there that are running. So these are the computers that are passing data for Algorand, all the transactions and the blocks. I look at all of the nodes that are out there that are creating blocks and validating blocks. And I try to estimate the number of wallets that are out there. And so you add up all the power of all those computers, and then you can kind of estimate approximately how much power is being used by the Algorand blockchain for processing transactions and servicing its users. And so it turns out that that number is about 86 kilowatts of instantaneous power. And so just to put that into perspective, because of course, what does that mean unless you're an electronic engineer? Probably not much. It's kind of like having a Tesla on charge at not even at a supercharger, because a supercharger will be hitting a Tesla with about 150 kilowatts. And so it's kind of like charging your Tesla at a crummy gas station. That's the amount of power that's being used by Algorand at any one point. And so this is pretty great. It's pretty great for a global financial network that is completely decentralized and secure. And so if you compare that then to how much energy does it take to run the Eurozone, how much energy does it take to run the global dollar networks, how much energy does it take to run the Bitcoin networks, you'll see that it's an order of magnitude less. And so, yeah, that's why I think we can stand proud and say Algorand is pretty green.
Yeah, because you are proof of stake, right?
Yes, it's pure. It's a variant of proof of stake called pure proof of stake. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was aiming at. The pure thing, the
Yeah.
pure word.
So
Can you tell us about that? Because that sounded really interesting. I read somewhere, but I can't really
sure.
re-say it.
Absolutely. So the pure piece of the pure proof of stake. I'm just trying to think how I can distill this simply. So Algorand was started by a Turing Award-winning academic and cryptographer known as Silvio Micali. And this gentleman created a cryptographic primitive, so a Lego brick, a cryptographic Lego brick that we use in consensus. And by the way, this Lego brick is used by other platforms as well who use Algorand's technology in their code. And so this Lego brick, it's called the VRF. It allows us to deterministically but randomly select securely a member of the participation nodes to validate and to create blocks. And so this is a very powerful mechanism when we're trying to build a consensus algorithm. And so by utilizing this VRF primitive, we can, without using we're using a very, very, very small amount of electricity, we can process consensus, we can choose someone to create a block, we can choose someone to validate a block. And the pureness in the pure proof of stake, really the best way to think of it is with pure proof of stake, you don't pool consensus together. You don't have mining pools or staking pools where many, many people are clustered together in creating blocks or validating blocks and transactions. Instead, the pureness is that a single entity from the sea of validators or the sea of participants will be selected. And that's why it's called pure proof of stake. It avoids this pooling system.
Yeah, and is it only one then who can approve, and that's fine, or
yes?
How many?
So it tends to be one out of all of the participants. So the way it works is that to participate in consensus on Algorand, you must have a stake in the network. So you must have actual Algorand tokens. You then register for consensus. So you have to post a message to the blockchain that says, yeah, I want to register or change online my stake so that I'm contributing towards consensus. And then with a probability that's weighted by your stake. So the more stake you have, the more likely you have. The less stake you have, the less likely, but still possible you are to produce a block. And the VRF function will select someone from everyone who's staking with that weighted distribution. And then one entity within that pool will, sorry, not pool, but one entity within that space will be permitted to create the block, and then it goes through a validation process.
So not only the big whales are like benefiting from this,
Precisely,
but also
now
the small holders.
Yeah, but sure, but
the tiny fish.
Well, I want to be clear that let's say your big whale has 20% of the stake. Okay, as an example, this is just pulling it out of the air, and the small fish add up to 80% of the stake. Well, then the big whale gets to make 20% of the blocks, and the small fish get to make 80% of the blocks. So it's not that it's still weighted so that the more stake you have, the more likely you are to be chosen to create a block. But ultimately, the small fish, when they add up together, can outweigh the power of the whales. Yeah.
Okay. So how much ALGO do you need to have staked to be one of those?
Technically very little. I think you can probably be part of stake with as little as single digit algo. I've actually not tested that in the last few months, but in order to be selected by the VRF, with any kind of reasonable time frame, you'll probably need thousands of algo, given the size of the people that we see mining, or not mining rather, but staking.
Yeah, and all how does it work? Because I read that there's like 10 billion coins, right?
That's right. There's 10 billion coins in the total supply. Yeah.
But they're not out yet.
So 7 billion or so. I'll have to just double check exactly. I think it's 7 billion are currently in circulation, what we call it. 7.3 billion. And so the other 2.7 billion or so are held by the foundation, or are part of the governance process that we have, or otherwise. So they're all accounted for. We know where they all are. And some of them are dedicated to building the ecosystem and funding developers. Some of them are for operations within the foundation to keep the foundation running. Some of them are for governance, where they'll be given to people executing the governance process. So we know where they all are, but many of them are not on the open market, which is why we have that differential between circulating supply and total supply.
So there is no risk that someone has a really big bag, like a huge whale, that just will dump on everyone else. It's like, well, that's maybe always the risk. But I mean, from those tokens that we are now talking about, those extra 2.7
right
billion.
Right. So those extra 2.7, no, they are held by the foundation